So make sure you take notes and copy this down into your notebook because this is going to come in handy. You can always refer back to it to remember the key terms, to do that. And we will be going over graphing today. We're going to be learning how to graph ratio tables. And you'll see it makes something cool. So you'll see. So here's another thing that you might want to write down. This is called an ordered pair. It is written in parentheses with a comma in between. And it's an ordered pair because there's two of them and they have to go in a specific order. I can't put it Y and then X. That does not work. I have to put it X comma Y. And a good way I remember putting it X comma Y is which letter comes first in the alphabet? X. And so it goes X, Y. So I remember how to do it that way. You can remember it any way you want, just remembering it normally or by using my mnemonic tricks because I love that. So this is an ordered pair. Oops. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to be graphing these points. So I'm going to call on people. I'm going to call on a total of 8 people and we're going to see if we can get all of this right. So, and no, it's easy. So, first thing I want to say, Madison, in that top one, where does that 3 go? So, just tell me, where does it go? You don't have to tell me the plot point, but just where does the 3 start? Which is the X one? Yeah, the bottom. So we start here. We went over 1, 2, 3, right? Now, who wants to tell me what the next part is? Hold on, I want to see a hand. Trey. So we go up to 5, like this. But we don't need to keep those lines. I'm just doing that so that you can see it. So, one thing that we would do is we would plot that point at 3, 5, which is right here. The next one. Oh, sorry, I couldn't. Sorry. Thank you, guys. There. I'm trying to make it nice and big so everybody can see, and it's fun. Okay. Next one. Oleg, where do we go for the 9? Excellent. Right there. Yes. And hold on. Next person. Where do we go from there? Jaden. So I go here? No? What do? I go up? Exactly. I go up to 10. So that's the point, 9, 10. Let's look at the next point, 4, 6. Who wants to tell me? Lily. Exactly. And then we do what? Exactly. So it goes there. So we went up and it goes there. Elsie, what's the last point what's the next one?
You go over on the x-axis to 7.
Excellent. And then next, the last person who wants to tell me what we do. Who wants to tell me what? Nathan.
You go up to 3.
We go up to 3. Excellent. So, this is how we plot points. Pretty simple.
Yeah.
The only important thing you have to remember is which axis is which and which ordered pair it is. So, I have a little bit of, I have little ways that I remember things because this is just how I do it. Like I said, X comes first and then Y. I remember it that way. And the Y-axis is the one we rise. So we rise on Ys. I was expecting way more. Come on. So, by the way, me telling you that actually comes into an important part later in math when you're going to be learning about slope. But Y is our rise and X is called the run. Because if you were running, you can run this way, right? Can we run upwards?
Yeah, we're running on a hill.
No, I mean straight up. No. So we can't run straight up, but we run like that. Anyway, let's go to this. I want you to try this one. Page 46, do numbers 19, 20, and 21, and then close your book, okay? So what is our X value for number 19? Lucy? X value is 4. Exactly. That's hard to see it, so. The X value is 4. Can you guys see it? Yeah, you can kind of see it. So the x value is 4. What about the y value? Who can tell me? What is it, Fernando? 4, 5. So we write it 4, 5. Would it be appropriate if I wrote it 5, 4? No, that means something completely different. 5, 4 would be there-ish. It's hard to graph on this. Okay, what about the next one? What's the x value on the next one, Nathan?
The x value for number 20 is 7.
7. And what's the y value, Anita? 3, exactly. Now, Liam is drawing a map. He needs to plot 4 points. So, we go the first one. X is 3, Y is 2. It's easy. We go there. School is at 6, 4. 6, 4. The park is at 8, 1. And then Liam's house is at 2, 8. Perfect. So your graphs should look something like that. Your graphs should look something like that. Now, here's what we're going to be doing. We're looking at this. This is an example, so don't just look on the screen for it. It doesn't matter. You don't need to be following in with this. But what we're doing is we're going to be looking at an example of when we graph, when we are graphing ratio tables. So when we graph ratio tables. So this first one, when Renee makes a scrapbook, on one page, she has 4 photos. When Gina makes a scrapbook, on one page, she has 6 photos, right? So, who do you think has the most photos in their scrapbook? Who do you think has the most photos in their scrapbook? It's so easy, Matthew.
Gina.
Yes, Gina, because on every one page, she has 6 pictures. Every one page, she has 6 pictures. And if we look at the bottom, this is Gina's line, and this is Renee's line. Whose line goes higher?
Gina.
Whose line? Yeah, Gina. And whose line is steeper? Steepness means how it's tilted. Gina's line is steeper. Gina's line is steeper. Exactly. So, we're going to go over this, and if we get through this, if you guys are still complaining how easy it is, I'm going to go into the further in-depth because you guys are my honors. So it's honors track. So, the steeper the line, the bigger the ratio. The steeper the line, the bigger the ratio. So this has to do with something called slope. Who knows what slope is? Elsie? Yeah, exactly. It's when something goes up or down kind of thing, because you guys go skiing on a mountain slope. Yeah, an escalator, stuff like that. Exactly. All of those are great examples of slope. Now, what we're learning about and what most slope is, and I don't think we're ever going to change this for you until later, much later math, what we're going to be learning about is linear functions. Linear functions. What do you think linear means? What do we think linear means? I want to see Matthew. Line, exactly. It's basically got the word line in it. I think it does if I can spell it right. But exactly. We're going to be learning about linear functions. That means functions that are in a straight line. They're not wavy. They don't do that. They literally always follow the same rules. So, let's look. Here's another thing I want you to write in your book. Rise over run. Remember when I mentioned that? Rise is our y and run is our x. So the way we write it is in this ratio. Doesn't this look a little familiar to the fractions we were doing? I want you to try this on page 50. You're going to be looking at the total money saved, which is going to be our y value. They tell you which value is which. They always tell you which value is which. So what is our x value? What does our x value symbolize? What does it symbolize, Mile? No, what does our x value symbolize? What is our x itself? The variable x. Miles? Weeks, exactly. All x values mean weeks. It's not 1 because 1 is only one of the points. It can also be 2, 3, 4. It can keep going. X value means weeks. So what does our y value mean? What does our y value mean, Rocco? Total saved. Exactly. So I want you to read the question and fill it out. Fill it out. For Marcus, what's his first value that goes here? What's his first value that goes here, Miles? For Marcus, 10, I want to use a different color pen. 10 goes here. Because, how did you know that? How'd you know that, Elsie?
Because in 1 week, Marcus saves $10.
Exactly, Marcus saves $10. What about the next week for number 2? For when X is 2, what do I put for Y? Michelle? 20. Why don't I just put another 10? He only saves $10 each week. Why don't I just put another 10, Fernando? Exactly. It's cumulative. It's cumulative. And that means that as we're going up with X, we're also going up with Y. So, as you know, the next one would be 30. The next one's 40. What about for David? What does David do, Anita? Yes, he starts off with 15, and then we go to 30. Then we go to 45, and then we go to 60. So, our XY points would be 1, 15, 2, 30, 3, 45, and 4, 60. Excellent. And on the other one, it's 1, 10, 2, 20, 3, 30, and 4, 40. Excellent. This was the easy stuff. So, if we graphed it on this sheet, so I want you to graph it on your sheet. Did you guys do number 2? Once we write our ordered pairs down, we graph it on our graph, which makes sense because it's called a graph and we're graphing. So that's how it works. So here's the graph for this problem. Marcus saves $10. So his line, he's saving less money. So as we can see, it's not as steep. It's not as steep. And it's below David's. So who saves more money? Who saved more money? This is pretty easy, you guys. Let's see. I want a new hand. Madison? David did. Notice how steep David's line is? We're looking at this. It goes up like that, as opposed to Marcus's line, which goes up like that. And the difference between them is only going to get bigger every point we plot, which makes sense because he's saving a lot more money and the other one's not. So the first difference, you see how close they are? Not a big deal, you know? The second distance, they're further. Look at this last distance. That's pretty far apart. So, what we're going to do is, because we already finished this section, instead of doing the guided practice, I'm also going to give a little bit of an additional lesson to you. So, one of the things that we do, I'm going to teach you this. This you'll be learning in 7th grade math, I believe, or in algebra, but it's not hard, okay? So, there's going to be this formula, and if you want to take notes on this formula, go ahead. If you don't, just watch the lesson. There's a formula, and it's called y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. Write it down, and then I'll tell you what it means. So it's called slope-intercept form. It's called slope-intercept form, and I'm going to go over it with you. But it looks tricky, like I said. Look at, they're all letters. This isn't an English class, but we're going to start filling in for those letters, and I'm going to show you how we do that. So, if we look back at our previous graph, we can see different plot points. Let's just pick 2, because we're going to, one from each person. We're going to pick the 460, and we're going to pick the 440 points. The 440 points. Now, one thing first, I want you to turn these into a unit rate. It's super easy. It's already done for you because that just means week 1, right? So, look at week 1. If we divided them both, if we got a unit rate, we want 4 to be 1. What does 60 become? We want 4 to be 1. It becomes 15. We want 4 here to be 1. And so 40 becomes 10. Exactly. So every 1 week, he saves, not 4. Every 1 week here, he saves $15. Every other week, he saves 10. We're going to be looking back at this formula, rise over run. So rise over run is how we're going to find out one of the pieces of our equation. That's how we're going to find out one of the pieces of our equation. So rise over run. Let's look at this one first for 4, 60. What's our rise in 4, 60? What's our rise, Rafi? No. What's our rise in any way, Lily? Yeah, no. What's our rise, Elsie? 60, because that's the y value. The y value goes on top. Our ordered pair, this is our y value. Now, what goes on the bottom? It's the only other number. Michelle? 4. And that's the x. Now, I prefer to do this in the most simplified form, which is why I had you guys do it as unit rates. It's going to be 1 and 15, and the other one for rise over run, is going to be 10 over 1. So when we get these, whenever we get them, we have to simplify the fractions down to a unit rate or as close as we can to a unit rate doing that. We want our unit rates. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to explain this to you. Rise over run literally means slope. Rise over run literally means slope. This is the steepness of the line. This is the steepness of the line. So I'm going to go over, remember, slope, like when we go skiing, you go down a slope. So this is called our slope. That's the difference between each number. So as we know here, this is 15, and we go up to 30. And here's the other one, we go over to 2. It's not a rectangle, but what it forms is, well, actually, it could be a rectangle, and then we just bisect it and cut through. Anyway, so I'm going to teach you. We go back to this formula, y equals mx plus b. I want you to label these two parts. We're already learning about this one. The m stands for slope. The m stands for slope. So once we solve for slope, which we already did, we already found each of their slopes. Once we solve for slope, we plug it in to the m value. I didn't choose the numbers. These are always, I didn't choose the letters. These are always the letters. It is always y equals mx plus b. M means slope. Y means our y value. X means our x value. Pretty clear there. So, now, what we do here is we use it to plug in. Let's have a y value. So, what y value do you want to pick for one line? Pick somebody's y value, anybody's, anywhere. Rocco. Yeah, 60. So, when we do this, y equals mx plus b, with our 60 slope, that's going to be 15 over 1, right? Because that's how much it goes up each week. So, we plug that in for m. It now becomes y equals 15x plus b. It now becomes y equals 15x plus b. And we can plug in for our other values. Y is 60. Actually, we already knew this, but we typically plug in for x, so we're going to do it that way. Y equals 15, and we'll pick the number of weeks. Let's say 1 week plus b. Now, b is it's called our y-intercept. What does intercept mean? What does intercept mean, Rocco? It does kind of mean that, but so Hannah? Yeah, exactly. You're like going in between things. You're going on something specific. You know, people intercept like a ball in football. That's a thing, right? Anyway, so this is our y value. Now, what was our y value for this one? When our x value was 1, what did our y value become? When our x value was 1, what was our y value? What was it, Lucy? Tell me what it is. When our x value was 1 for David, what was our y value? 15. Exactly. So, let's look at this problem. We had 15 equals 15 times 1 minus b. All right, plus b? Yeah, plus b. So, what's 15 times 1? 15. We just keep bringing it down. We bring everything down. We did our math. We bring everything down. This says 15 equals 15 plus b. What is b going to be? What's b going to be? 0. Because if it's anything else, if we put 1 for b, then we're going to get 15 equals 16, and that does not work. So, what we do, once we figure out our slope, once we have our x value, once we have our y value, that's when we figure out our b value. So, like I said before, I called it the y-intercept. Y-intercept. What that means is it's going to intercept somewhere on our y-axis. In this case, b is what? B is what? Let's see, Miles. 0. So we literally plot the point where y is 0. That's there. What is that point called, by the way? That specific point. Who can tell me what that's called? I want to see new hands from everybody. I'm doing grading in this week. Let's just see. Daniel. Not an organ. How do you pronounce it? Who thinks? Adrian. Origin, yes. It's the origin. Now, why do we think that we call it the origin? Hannah.
Because that's where the point starts or originates.
Exactly. That's where the point starts or originates. Now, it's not always where the point starts because sometimes our b value can be up there. But the origin is literally where the two planes meet, where everything initially kind of starts in one way or another, when everything kind of starts one way or another. I'm going to give you this one to solve. We had our equation already. We know we have our slope. Our slope is 15. We have an x there, plus b, which b is equal to 0. And so our y was 15. Let's plug in, or our y, we don't know our y yet. I want you to plug it in for the next 3 points for each, or for the next points for each of them. So I want you to, in your notebooks, write down what the y equals mx plus b formula would be for Marcus and for David. You have to fill in all of the numbers, and what you're going to get down to is you have to get down to an answer where this side, y is equal to the other side. So the end practice, just like the other one ended with 15 equals 15, we need to end with identical numbers. So, what is the first pair that I'm going to do? We already did week 1 for Marcus. So what are we going to do, or for David? We already did week 1 for David. What are we going to do for week 2? How do we figure this out? Yes.
I have a question.
Oh.
Is
I have to start because I forgot to hit record. So when x is 2, we plug it in. 15 times 2 is 30. So our y value equals 30 because we're just adding 0 to it. And that makes sense because when we go back to our chart, we see that our x is 2 and our y is 30. Our x is 2 and our y is 30. So that's how we solve this.
Wait, this for David?
This is how we solve this. This is for David. What would Marcus's formula be? What would his y equals mx plus b be? What would his y equals mx plus b be? Elsie. What would the m be? I want to know what the m would be in Marcus's. 10. Exactly, because he goes up by 10 every week. So his slope, how much he's increasing, is 10. Then we can plug in for our x values. Once again, we know that our b is going to be 0. Because how much does he save in 0 weeks? $0. That's just common sense. He can't, if it's 0 weeks, he can't save any money. So in 0 weeks, he saves $0. So our b is going to be 0. So I want you to plug this in for the whole thing. I want you to do each of those 4 points. When x equals 1, when x equals 2, when x equals 3, and when x equals 4. By the way, you're just going to get the same answers as we did on our ratio tables. You're just going to get the same values that we did on our ratio tables. So I'm going to ask someone, y equals 10x plus 0. What about when our x value is 7? What about when our x value, that's not on our chart. What about when our x value is 7? What do we do, Elsie?
You multiply the 10 minus 7.
Exactly, we plug the 7 in right here. So we get 10 times 7 plus 0 is equal to y. We get that to be 70 plus 0 equals y. So what does y equal? 70. And doesn't that make sense? If he saves $10 each week, how much is he going to save in 7 weeks? $70. $70. Now, here's a different thing. I'm going to give you this equation, and I'm going to make you fill out a chart, okay? Our x, y chart. So, for x, we're going to do 1, 2, 5, and 7. And I'm not going to tell you what our y's are. Our formula initiates as, I want to say it as a class. What's our formula? Y equals mx plus b. Mx plus b. Now, I'm going to give you one y value, and then you have to solve this equation. I'm going to give you one y value, and you have to... So, when x is 1, y is 13. First things first, I want you to find the m. I want you to find the slope. Find the slope. Find the slope. So, here, what is our slope? What's our slope, Miles?
The slope is 13.
13, because it's y over x, and it's 13 over 1. 13 over 1 is just 13. Exactly. So now in our formula, we have y equals 13x plus b. Now, in this case, I'm going to give you one more just to tell you. We also have the point 0, comma 0. We also have the point 0, comma 0. We have the point 0, comma 0. So what is our b value going to be? Our b means when x is 0, what's the y value? Our b means when x is 0, what's the y value? 0. It's our origin, but don't call out. So what happens here is we get y equals 13 times 0 plus b. What's 13 times 0? 0. And we need this to be equal. What's our y value for this one? 0. So what is our b going to be in this situation? 0. It looks like a 6, but that's my poorly drawn b. That's my poorly drawn b. So it becomes 0. This makes sense because we start at the origin. So in 0 weeks, he saved $0, right? So I want you to figure this out for the rest of the table. Fill it in for the rest of the table. We already have our slope. We already have our b. So we know that b is equal to 0. So we don't even really need to write b anymore because we already know that it's equal. I'm trying to get the same color to 0. So fill out the rest of this chart in your book. Fill it out. Let's look at our first example together. Y equals 13. Pick a week or pick an x value. What's our x value? Someone give me an x value. Someone, Hannah. 5. Exactly. And we already know it's our b is 0. What's 13 times 5? What's 13 times 5?
13 times 5 is 65.
65?
Yes.
Exactly. Plus 0 equals y. So what does our y value equal? What is our y value equal to when x is 5? What is our y value equal to? 65. So right here, our ordered pair would be 5, comma 65. That's our ordered pair. What did we get when x equals 2? What is y? Miles. 26. What do we get when x equals 7? 91. Exactly, you guys. So, do you see how easy this is? It's really not that hard. Now, students keep asking me, What about, is b always 0? No, because if it was always 0, they wouldn't have included the b. It's not that exactly. If b was always 0, y equals mx plus 0. The plus 0, do we need to write that? No, so our formula is not y equals mx. Our formula is y equals mx plus b. Now, I'm going to give you 2 points, and you're going to tell me. So, I'm going to give you 2 points, and you guys are going to graph this on your own. So, in this case, I'm going to give you 2 pairs of points. When x is 0, we need to find out what y is. We don't know that yet. And then my other point that I'm going to give you is when x is 5, our value is going to be equal to, I want to choose something better. It's just going to be 20. When x is 5, our value is going to be 20. So first, how do we find the slope? What's the slope of this equation? What's the slope of this formula? What is it, Miles? The slope is not 5, or it's not 5. We put y over x, rise over run, y's over x. So what is it, Anita? 20 over what? Over 5. That simplifies to what? What does that simplify to? Michelle? 4 over 1, so just 4. So now our new equation looks like y equals 4x plus b. In this case, I want you to plug in when x is 0. And you're going to tell me what the answer is. We already know our slope. Our slope is 4. So what did we get now, Madison?
0.
So we get y equals 0 plus b, right? Y equals 0 plus b. Now, we would get, actually, this is silly. We would get 0 again in this case, I think. But I'm going to come up with one we don't. Hold on. I'm going to give you a problem to work backwards on. Here is our chart. Here is our chart for our x, y value. In this case, one of our plot points is going to be 5, 7. I want you to solve when x is 0. But I'm going to give you the b already. Y equals mx plus, and I'm going to say that our b is 2. Our b, not always, I'm just making it up for this equation. Exactly, for this one, b is 2. I want you to find out b is 2. And fill out the rest of this chart. Fill out the rest of this chart. It's really easy. What is our y-intercept? What is our y when x is equal to 0? When x is equal to 0, what is our y?
0.
Not 0. So we plug it in. Y equals our slope. What's the slope? Find me a slope.
7.
It's not, Hannah? This one's a little tricky. Actually, I'm going to change the 7 because I can't, it's too hard to graph because I didn't think that through. We're changing it into a 10. We're changing it into a 10. So, what is our slope, you guys? What is it, Rafi? It's 2 because it's 10 over 5. So it's 2x plus 2. So fill in for the rest of the chart here. Fill in for the rest of the chart. Here we're going to solve for b. Here we're going to solve for b. Okay? Here we're going to solve for b. So first case first, I'm going to give you a slope. This is easy, 6 over 18. Or I mean, it's 6 and 18. 6 and 18. And I'm going to give you a y value this time. So our y value is going to be, it's going to be 9. We have to find our x value, and then we're going to solve for our b value. Actually, yeah, we're going to solve for our b value. Now, we're going to solve for our b value. So, 9, he's right. When we do it, 9 equals 3 for the x. X is that. What's our slope, though? Who can tell me the slope? With a raise of hands, what is it? What's our slope? I need to see new hands. Rafi. It was equal to 3. Y equals 3x plus b. Exactly. We're going to go further into this lesson later, but this is all we need for now.